The Corporate Pilot Guys podcast is about to begin. Your hosts are Tim and Rob, two corporate pilots and former flight instructors who have 13,000 combined flight hours. They will discuss aviation on both sides of the border. Tim is from the United States and Rob is from Canada.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Corporate Pilot Guys podcast. We've taken a long break, but we're back now. We've got some new things we want to try out, some new formats. And Tim, what have you been up to?
Pretty much the same thing you have, flying and not flying.
It's true. Yes, flying. I actually haven't left North America, which is kind of strange. I haven't even been to Hawaii, but lots and lots of trips all over the place. It's been busy. I don't have sim coming up for a little while, which is nice, but I do have a ride this year.
So when you say a ride, do you mean an actual check ride at sim trainer, or do you do an actual flight with like a check airman?
An actual in the simulator with provider that does the training for us in Montreal on the Challenger. And then we have a Transport Canada representative come in and do a flight examination.
Okay, so the Transport Canada person, are they doing a flight examination on you or the simulator employee?
On us.
Oh, on you.
So what we typically have is we'll have a captain and first officer. Then we'll have someone that's operating the simulator that works for the company that we go to, and then there will be the check airman that is basically that person works for our company and has been approved by Transport Canada to conduct check rides. You probably have something similar in the US.
Yeah, it works pretty much the same way for that, but when we're at training, occasionally there will be an FAA person there, but they will even say, we're not here to check you, we're here to check the person giving the instruction, who is also able to do like full-on check rides and give type rides, and they're there for them, so they say. Which also means they might be a little bit more, the instructor might be a little bit more picky because he's being watched. They're always picky, they're not going to do anything unsafe, but they say they're not there for us.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Wink.
It certainly adds more of a stress level, that's for sure. So this new format, Tim, we're looking at still doing some interviews with some, really amazing aviation personalities. A lot of those people that we spoke to were from TikTok. We still plan on doing that. However, our new plan is to provide our listeners every 2 weeks with a podcast. And we want to, get that out basically two times a month. And we're Tim and I are both excited to discuss our own personal flying experiences, flying stories, and tell you all about flying corporate jets and that kind of stuff. Does that sound about right, Tim?
Yeah, the goal is every 2 weeks do a podcast. There will, like you said, there will still be some interviews. I will say the next one we have planned is with a TikTok creator who just got a job with a regional airline, who went from flight instructing. He's going to come on here in a week or so and talk about his experience on what it was like to go from flight instructing to going through the interview process, being hired, and then going through all the training, because that's an important subject right now, because there's so much hiring out there and so many people going through this same process that the person might be a flight instructor wondering, what's it going to be like? And this will help answer some of those questions.
Yes. Well, I went through that process many, many years ago, and I'm sure it's radically changed. And I'm very interested to hear how it has changed, and certainly how they're handling this giant rush of training of pilots that's happening right now. Tim, you and I have been discussing this quite a bit. We really want to hear from our podcast listeners. We want to open the welcome mat, if you will, and ask you to use SpeakPipe, which is very simple. You basically just go onto a website, you record a brief message, a question, and tell us all about your aviation experience, whether you're involved in aviation, maybe your friends, your family, or however you were involved in aviation, because somehow you've made it over to an aviation podcast. So we want to know why you're here, and just tell us all about maybe what type of aircraft you've worked on, flown on, whatever it may be. And again, you can reach out via SpeakPipe. I'll leave that in the show notes below, or you can send us a good old fashioned email, or if maybe reach us
letter
via
by
chat,
carrier pigeon.
you could, whichever way you feel would be appropriate. You just go ahead and do that.
And that would be great. I like hearing from people. You and I both have YouTube channels, and it is great to be able to hear from people and hear their backgrounds. I especially enjoy that stuff.
I do too. We've on that note, Tim, both you and I have YouTube channels. Your name is the Corporate Pilot Dad, and what kind of stuff is on your YouTube channel?
My channel has a lot of flight simulator related topics, but more recently I've been doing topics that will help benefit student pilots. Right now I am doing a series on VFR sectionals. I take a camera, I've got it on a little dolly, and instead of using SkyVector or one of those websites with sectionals, I use an actual DSLR with a physical sectional chart and show items on the map that are being discussed to kind of give it a different flair. But also, like, if a person's looking at a sectional, it'll look exactly the same way that they'll see it. But I try to make it a little bit artistic, a little bit creative, entertaining, and then I add music and stuff to it. So right now I'm working on that series. I've got videos on copying instrument approach clearances, copying IFR clearances for like flying from point A to point B, and I've got real air traffic controllers who have helped me with both of those videos. And that's kind of my intent in the future, in the next 12 months, is to make more videos that will help student pilots learn topics that may not be explained very well in books, like talking to ATC. So right. I've got plans to do more VFR ATC stuff using real air traffic controllers. But yeah, that's kind of my future plan. That's been a video idea for a long time. It's just executing and actually doing it. I like to make stuff that helps flight simmers and student pilots and people working on instrument ratings to make their training easier and to help them learn.
Yeah, and you've done an amazing job at that, Tim. The Corporate Pilot Dad channel is something you want to check out. It's very extensive. It's got a lot of very interesting stuff on there, and I'm sure you're going to learn a lot about aviation. Just really cool topics. Like, I know you did some peculiar airports with weird names.
Oh yeah,
and that I found that really cool. And certainly, if someone is involved in flight simulation, this is definitely a channel to check out. My channel is very specific to a specific aircraft, a flight simulator aircraft, on a completely different platform than Tim has. So mine is focused on X-Plane, and specifically the Hot Start Challenger 650. And that is the aircraft I do fly in real life. And it's a new experience for me. My channel grew very quickly, and it was very, very exciting. And both Tim and I have been a long time, and when I say long, way back for the original versions of Flight Simulator when it came out, when Chicago Meigs Field was there, and I'm sure you can remember that, Tim.
Yes, and it's back now.
Is it back? Cool.
In Flight Sim, yeah, the 40th anniversary, they brought it back.
Very cool.
So it's in the sim.
Well, you may be wondering, well, why would corporate jet pilots who are experienced be using Flight Simulator? And
can I answer that?
You can, because my wife asks me this question all the time. So
because
go ahead.
People that flying, they say flying's in the blood. It's not an addiction, but it's just something we want to do all the time. There are times I will go and have a 6-hour leg across the country, and I'll come home and still play Flight Sim. We love airplanes. We love flying. Real airplanes and fake airplanes It doesn't matter. And with Flight Sim, you can practice approaches, you can do VOR tracking, NDB track, everything you can do in a real airplane as far as navigation, you can go do that in Microsoft Flight Simulator. And that's the cool thing about it. But also with this new Microsoft Flight Simulator, well, we'll get there, but Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 has incredible graphics. You can see what it looks like to fly anywhere in the world. But yeah, for the most part, we just love airplanes. It doesn't matter, fake or real, we like them.
Yeah, and we're both admitted av nerds, like extreme av nerds, and you know, it's just an extension to that. I'm sure, and you know, I've had basically every flight simulator product that you know that was available, really, and back when it was just like FSX and FS98 and.
What was the first flight simulator you played of the Microsoft versions?
I believe it was on. It was. I remember it was on an Apple computer, and it was using the keys just to move the plane around, and it was like like a little box that was flying around. I think it was Microsoft Flight Simulator, but it could be something else.
Yeah, the first one I played was Flight Sim 4.0, and then I definitely remember 5. We had that. I played 4.0 at somebody else's house, and then we had, I think, 5. That was on an old Tandy 286.
Oh wow!
I mean, if you go back and look at the specs of that computer, I mean, it'd be mind blowing compared to what we have today. As far as the stuff we have today would be mind blowing compared to that.
Well, my first computer that I actually flew some type of airplane on, it was a Texas Instruments TI 99 4A. And I believe the 99 was 99 megabytes. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it was. So in order to play a game, you had a cartridge, kind of like, I guess there's cartridges now. I just don't use them anymore. That you would insert, and I played a game called Parsec, and it was basically flying a little space aircraft through a tube, blowing stuff up and trying to not, get hit by the sides, kind of thing. And I played that for hours and hours and hours.
And now you do it with Flight Sim.
Yeah, and also, I mean, the other thing too, way back when, I'm 50 years old, so I mean, I'm very used to going into arcades and finding my favorite game there, and something was always aviation related for me, and
Afterburner. Did you have Afterburner in the arcades?
Oh yeah,
that was an awesome game.
I looked for Afterburner, and I mean, it was the first game that you could get in and feel like you're moving around, and it was the graphics weren't.
I think it was an
awesome,
F-14.
It was. It sure was. Yeah, it sure was.
Yeah, I remember wasting lots and lots of money, and my whole allowance went straight to the arcade every single week. And I loved every minute of it. And now my kids, when we go on vacation, I let them spend way too much of my money at the arcade because I enjoy it too. It makes memories for them, and they enjoy it. So it's worth it.
For sure. So my big impetus, though, for Flight Simulator when I started flying was to take the skills that I learned specifically in IFR training that I learned that week, take them home, redo them in the simulator, try and get better mentally, trying to focus on the whole three-dimensional world of flying.
Mm-hmm.
And that helped so much. And now that we have these incredibly complex, and like the graphics are mind-blowing now.
But not only that, the avionics are so lifelike to the real things. I mean, they program them to work just like the real avionics. Some of the nitty-gritty stuff, the really deep stuff, isn't there just because the simulator doesn't support it. But the basics are all there. So you could go and learn a G1000, the basics of it in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and then go get in an airplane and impress the instructor thinking, how'd you learn to do that?
Exactly.
Well, I learned it in Flight Simulator, but that's where Flight Simulator has come. And that's great. But yeah, like you said, you can go do a lesson and then you can go back and practice it in the simulator. And for instrument training, any of the flight sims are absolutely phenomenal from that respect. To being able to use an actual Jeppesen approach plate and go do an approach the same way you would in the airplane using the same procedures, and it all works. Just to have that feature is a great tool. When I learned, we had Flight Sim 98. It wasn't that advanced. You could use charts, but I don't think Flight Sim 98 had the whole world on it, and I don't think the databases and stuff weren't there like they are today.
I think you're right. I think it was very limited to North America, and if it was beyond North America, it certainly didn't look very good. But there was some type of airport that kind of looked like a place. But now, you can just dream up a place. I want to fly out of Kathmandu, Nepal, and you could go and fly by Mount Everest if you wanted to, and,
or land on it,
or if you really wanted to land on it, and take off out of the Lukla airport, which is one of the
I think
Nepal, very, very near Everest Base Camp. Try that in VR, and it's mind blowing. And
looking around, seeing the tall mountains.
Yeah. And I think what's going to happen, Tim, down the road is that flight simulation, I don't think this is going to happen right away, but I think down the road, due to the costs of aviation, you're eventually going to see kind of a flight simulator type cockpit with VR, and that's how they're going to teach you to fly.
It's going to become a hybrid
realistic world.
Yeah, I think that is going to happen. And they'll get better. There's some headsets out there now. I think it's definitely in its infancy, where you don't need to wear a glove or anything. You just use your hand and flip a switch in VR, and it actually flips the switch digitally in your headset. So you actually flip it. So I think that will happen. And that's great because it will reduce the cost of training, but also it may make training safer because you can go practice this stuff and practice different scenarios in the simulator in VR before you actually go out and do it in the airplane, or some emergencies you just will not want to do in the airplane that you can do in a simulator.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to bring that, the simulator world that we see when we go to training with the high level of detail on these sims, it's going to bring that to the average consumer in the flight schools. And for that, I think it's great. But yeah, I think you're right. I think we're going to see that more in the future. And it may not be Microsoft Flight Simulator. X-Plane's already approved for training Flight Sim. I don't believe Microsoft Flight Simulator is at all, but who knows what will happen in the future.
Yeah. The evolution of flight simulation has been, really, really, really incredible. And if you haven't seen it, you really want to check it out. The big thing for me was you needed to have a very beefy computer system.
Yes.
To run, even when Flight Simulator 2000 came out, you needed to have a serious computer to operate it. And I never had a
computer fast enough to run a flight sim on full graphics until Flight Sim 2020. When I made the decision to buy it, I said, you know what? I'm buying one that can run this thing on highest detail, put it on full blast, I'm running it. And that's pretty much what I did. But the best thing I could get, I didn't spend a huge amount of money for it. I think it was $2,000 back in 2020, which for a gaming computer, that's not too bad, but also it's not the most powerful, but I could pretty much run Flight Sim the way I expected it to look. But yeah, that's the hard part with flight sims. Okay, these are the requirements, but will I be able to run it on its maximum settings? And usually the answer was no.
Yeah. Oh, when Flight Sim 2000 came out, it was so demanding on the computer. And I had a very good computer. I bought a computer as a Canadian from a Florida company, which is, I won't mention their name, but I'll just say that they're one of the most advanced flight simulator computer companies in the world. They actually build computer systems for the U.S. Air Force, and they integrate VR technology, and they train current fighter pilots. So really, really cool stuff that consumers can have. And now that we have Flight Sim, 2024, or sorry, 2022, pardon me.
2020.
So 2020, pardon me, yes. Time's flying by here. 2020. The biggest change that happened is that you didn't have to have this beefy computer system. You could now have it on an Xbox. So that opened up this huge door to this incredible market of keen, people that want to learn all about aviation, and now there's incredible stuff that's coming out, and now we're moving into 2024, which, if you wouldn't mind talking about it, it's mind blowing if you have not checked out the current trailer.
Yeah, but what I do want to say, the fact that they brought Microsoft Flight Simulator to the Xbox brings flight simulation to a whole new population of people that maybe don't have PCs, couldn't afford them, because you can buy an Xbox and a flight yoke for combined maybe $500-$600 in flight sim. But if you have the Xbox Game Pass, flight sim is included in that, so it's a free download from if you have the Game Pass. So it's brought flight simulation to a lot more people. And then think about, okay, somebody who didn't have a PC before but had an Xbox can now play flight sim. They get hooked on it and say, you know what, I want to go do this for real. How many real pilots is flight sim going to produce? I mean, how many of us back 20, 30 years ago, before we flew, played flight sim and said, you know what, I really want to fly, but this is making me want to fly more. That's still going to happen today. And there's a lot of people out there that got into aviation purely because, or simply because, of Microsoft Flight Simulator.
I agree 100%. And now that the Xbox, there's just so many people that are on there, and they're doing amazing things, like the ability to fly in your living room and do, some pretty cool videos. I think it's just going to add, it makes it exciting again. And I think this new level that we're talking about, which is going to be Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, from what I've seen, it's going to add in the realism factor to a new level. For example, it's going to add in, one of the scenes, what seasons, or one of the scenarios that you first see is, I believe it's Los Angeles, and it shows that there's a forest fire going on, and you're going to jump into a CL-215 or 415 water bomber, and you're going to go and put that fire out. Otherwise, LA is going to burn down. So you're going to have a mission, should you accept it. And you're going to go and tackle, maybe a car that's gone off a cliff in a helicopter. You're going to do, drop some personnel down there. Maybe you'll do a medevac. I don't know. But really cool stuff that starts to show not just what the airplane looks like and what the flight deck looks like, but how these are tools in real life. Yeah. And I think that's going to be a really new and exciting thing that's going to bring more and more people into it.
Yeah. And I look forward to it. And there's people out there saying, oh, they're making it into a game. I don't think so. They're adding they're adding those functions to what we have now, but it's going to be made better. But the other thing that I look forward to, and this might be something that I go and do it in the new sim for 15 minutes and say, okay, that was neat. Crop dusting. What kid doesn't? I grew up in rural Illinois, and I would see crop dusters all the time as a kid, thinking, oh, that looks like a really neat thing to do. I can go be a crop duster now.
you can.
From my computer chair. But there's also air racing. There's aerial firefighting. There's some new airplanes already shown in it. They've got an A-10. There's blimps. Hot air balloons. So they're going to add some really cool features. There's also going to be, you can carry skydivers. But what I want to see is you get to be the skydiver. I think that would be cool. Actually jumping out of the airplane and skydiving, doing that in VR would be a pretty cool experience, and maybe trying to land in a stadium. I hope they implement that, and I hope they do that to where it's like a free world where you can go do that anywhere and not just in one location that's already pre-programmed. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, if the thing that we don't know right now is that these scenarios that they have are these, can you set these up, anywhere in the whole world, or are they just going to be one fixed scenario that, you'll have to play over and over to get better kind of thing?
Yeah.
We just don't know.
My guess it's going to be similar to what FSX or Flight Sim 10 had, because it had a lot of this stuff in it, but those were pretty much fixed. I think they had them for different skill levels. They would make them a little bit different, but yes. I hope it's not just like that. I hope they add the functionality to, the forest fires, obviously you're going to go where those are, but like for the skydiving and some of the other stuff, I hope we have a little more freedom on that stuff.
Yes.
But no, this is something I welcome. I do like the fact that there's going to be seasons. We've already got real world weather, which shows seasons a little bit, but I don't know. I think it will still be better having the seasons change throughout, because you're supposed to have better trees. So you might have full trees in the summertime with lots of green leaves. Wintertime, they're just going to be bare and just kind of bland. I think it's a good thing that they're doing it, because who wants to stay with old technology when there's something better out they can use to make the software even better?
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing. I see a lot of posts and stuff, people saying, I'm not buying Flight Sim 2024. Well, why not? If it's better and does everything you found useful in the old one, plus new stuff, why would you not buy it? And you figure $100 spread out over 4 years, $25 a year. That's great. I'll pay that to play that for the amount of hours it's going to be used. And we went from Flight Sim 95 to 98 to 2000, 2002, 2004, and then 2010. Nobody complained, but I think what's going on here, Microsoft or / Asobo said, we're going to keep this thing up to date or update it for 10 years. And I think people, myself included, this is the way I felt, was this is the only simulator we're going to have from Microsoft for the next 10 years. And then they come out with this one. People are thinking, wait a second. But I don't think it's a bad thing. If you want to use 2020, use it. If you want 2024, great. Most of the stuff you buy in the marketplace will work in 2024. You do not have to repurchase it. But also, I think a lot of the old airplanes that developers have made for Flight Sim 2020 are going to make them available for 2024. Will you have to buy some of them again? Maybe. I don't know. That's just up to the developer. But I think they're still going to want their airplanes in the popular sim that's being used. They'd be fools not to.
Yes. And I think that a lot of the, I saw a whole bunch of complaining on Reddit about, we can't use our equipment. Of course you can. I mean, the yoke that you buy now, all of your stuff, other than maybe your software, some of the aircraft, maybe you're going to have to repurchase it. But I think it's a fantastic thing. I think it's great that we're moving forward and that there's so much money being pushed towards this industry that was dying for a while.
Well, they got rid of the Flight Sim franchise for the longest time.
Yes.
They sold it to, I don't know who owned it or what it was, who had it, but when I bought FSX, I had it multiple times, but the last time I bought it, I had it on my laptop. I paid $7 for it on Steam. It was on sale. But I don't think Microsoft had anything to do with it other than their name was on it. I think they totally left the franchise because console gaming was becoming so popular.
Yes.
And then fast forward to where they are now, they've got, last I checked, they have over 10 million users of Flight Sim.
That's incredible.
It is.
We never had that before.
No.
It was a very niche industry, I'm sure, back then. And, they were happy to sell a couple 100,000 copies or whatever it is. And now it's just this huge, huge deal worldwide.
Yeah. And it's not like you have to go to a store to buy it. You just go online, click a few buttons, and it downloads to your device, whether it's on an Xbox or a PC.
Yes. Well, Tim, we've said a little bit about our new format. You now know that we're both av nerds. Well, we probably already knew that before, but we both are interested and are very active in flight simulation products, whether it be X-Plane or Microsoft Flight Simulator. You're going to hear from us about that. We definitely want to hear from our listeners. Please check out the link below to reach the SpeakPipe link. Drop us a line there, drop us an email, and we will definitely read out your question online and answer what you want us to talk about. But we really want to know about what you are involved in aviation, because that's really our focus. Anything you want to add, Tim?
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Awesome. Well, everyone, have a wonderful day. And this is the Corporate Pilot Guys podcast, back with you. Take care now.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Corporate Pilot Guys podcast. The Corporate Pilot Guys can be contacted via SpeakPipe or email at thecorporatepilotguyspodcast@gmail.com. Please share your comments, show ideas, or questions about aviation.